what would you do if the person you loved most became the target of your own father's rage? Imagine watching the one you chose with your whole heart, being hunted like an animal through the very kingdom where you were born a princess. You cannot speak his name without fear. You cannot defend him without risking your life. And the man ordering his death is the man who gave you yours. This is not fiction. This is the story of Michal, daughter of Saul, wife of David, a woman caught between two worlds, two loyalties, two loves. And her story will shake you. Before we go any further, pause for a moment. Have you ever been caught between someone you love and someone you owe? Between your family and your truth? If you have, then you already understand Michal more than you know.
If you're enjoying this, I encourage you to subscribe. Go ahead and click that button right there. It just takes a second and it really helps the channel.
The kingdom of Israel was still young. Saul had been anointed its first king, tall, powerful, chosen by God. But Saul had a problem, a growing problem. His name was David. David was not born into royalty. He was a shepherd boy from Bethlehem, youngest of his brothers, overlooked, underestimated. But God had looked on him differently. And the moment David stepped onto a battlefield and laid a giant named Goliath face down in the dirt, with nothing but a stone and a sling, all of Israel knew his name. And so did every heart in Saul's household. David's name spread across the land like fire on dry grass. Women sang about him in the streets. Warriors celebrated him. Children whispered about him. And right there in the palace, behind closed doors and proper protocol, a young woman named Michal felt something she could not explain. She loved him, not with the quiet, distant admiration of someone who had seen him from afar. No, the scripture is clear. Michal loved David, deeply, openly, without apology. And here is where the story takes its first dangerous turn. Because her father, Saul, heard about it, and instead of sending Michal away from David, he decided to use her. Saul had already tried once to give his eldest daughter Merab to David, but that arrangement had fallen through. Now, hearing that Michal's heart was bent toward David, Saul saw not a romance, but a weapon. He pulled his servants aside and whispered his plan. Tell David that the king is pleased with him. Tell him the king's servants love him. Tell him the king wants him to become his son-in-law. But what those servants did not tell David was everything else Saul was thinking. The king was not offering his daughter out of love. He was offering her as a trap. The bride price Saul demanded was not gold, not land, not livestock. He asked for 100 Philistine foreskins, meaning 100 dead Philistine soldiers. Saul's hope was brutal, that David would march into enemy territory outnumbered and never come back. Can you feel the weight of that moment? David was being handed a wedding gift, wrapped around a death sentence. But David did not flinch. He rose up, he went out, and he came back not with 100, but with 200, double what Saul had demanded. 200 Philistines. 200 reasons for Saul's plan to collapse. 200 signs that God's hand was still on this man. Saul had no choice. He gave Michal to David. The wedding happened. And for a moment, just a moment, there was something like peace. But peace is fragile when it's built on envy. Saul watched David, watched the crowds love him, watched his own son Jonathan cling to David like a brother, watched his kingdom's future tilt slowly, surely in the direction of a shepherd boy who had no right to wear a crown, and yet somehow seemed destined for one. And it broke something in Saul, something beyond repair. The evil spirit that tormented Saul came back stronger. His moods swung without warning. He hurled a spear at David while David played music to calm him. Twice, and both times, David slipped away. Saul made a decision. He sent soldiers to David and Michal's house, not for a visit, not to deliver a message. He sent them to watch, and at dawn, to kill. What would you do in that moment? You're lying beside your husband. You know what morning will bring. Outside your walls, soldiers, inside your heart. A choice no one should ever have to make. Michal made hers. She went to David in the dark and said, "Get out, now. If you do not escape tonight, tomorrow you will be dead." She helped him through a window. She watched him disappear into the night. And then, with incredible courage and no small amount of desperation, she took a household idol, wrapped it in clothes, laid it in David's bed, and covered it with a goat hair pillow at its head. She built a dummy, a decoy, a lie to buy her husband time. When Saul's men came and demanded David, Michal told them he was sick. Saul was not convinced. He sent them back. "Bring him to me in his bed if you must. I will kill him there." They went in, and they found the idol, the deception, the empty bed. When Saul confronted his daughter, furious, humiliated, betrayed, Michal said something remarkable. She told him, "David threatened me. He said he would kill me if I did not help him escape." Was it true? We do not know. Perhaps she was protecting herself. Perhaps she was doing what she had to do to survive in a palace where honesty could cost you your life. But this we know. David was gone. He was safe, and Michal had chosen him, even over her own father, the king. She would pay for that choice in ways she could not yet see. The story does not follow Michal for a long season after this. The scripture shifts to David, to his years of running, hiding, building. He gathered around him a band of mighty men. He moved through wilderness and caves. He spared Saul's life twice when he could have ended it. He grew stronger, leaner, wiser. And while all of that was happening, Michal waited, or perhaps she stopped waiting, because Saul, in one of his fits of cruelty, or perhaps political calculation, took Michal and gave her to another man, a man named Paltiel, son of Laish. Think about that. Michal, who had risked everything for David, who had lied to a king for him, who had helped him escape with nothing but her love and her courage. She was handed to a stranger as if the choice had never been hers to make. There is something profoundly heartbreaking about this moment, and the Bible does not slow down enough for us to hear Michal weep. But the silence is loud. Years passed. Saul died on a battlefield. Jonathan, his son, David's dearest friend, died on the same day. The kingdom fractured. A war broke out between the house of Saul and the followers of David. And slowly, painfully, David emerged as the undisputed king over all Israel. When David finally took his throne, and when the moment came to consolidate his position and reclaim what was rightfully his, he sent a message to Abner, the military commander of Saul's former house. The message was simple, firm, and revealing. He said, "I will not meet with you unless you bring me Michal, Saul's daughter, the one I paid for with 100 Philistine foreskins." David wanted her back. Was it love? Was it politics, a way to legitimize his claim to the throne by bringing the former king's daughter back into his household? We cannot know David's full heart, but the decree went out, and Michal was taken. Again, not asked, taken. The scripture paints one of the most quietly devastating images in all of the Bible. Paltiel, the man Michal had lived with for years, followed behind her as she was led away. He wept as he walked. He followed her all the way to Bahurim before Abner finally turned around and told him, "Go back, go home." And Paltiel turned around, and Michal went forward. What was she feeling in that moment? Relief? Fear? Grief? Hope? She had loved David once with everything in her, but years had passed. Worlds had changed, and now she was being returned to a man who was no longer the fugitive she had saved, but a king. The reunion between David and Michal is not described with romance. What the Bible shows us next is a moment of rupture that seems to have been building for years. There came a day when the Ark of the Covenant, the most sacred object in all of Israel, was being brought into Jerusalem. This was David's greatest triumph, the presence of God returning to the city of the king. And David, this warrior, this poet, this man after God's own heart, he could not contain himself. He danced. He danced before the Lord with all his might. He leapt. He spun. He abandoned the weight of kingship for the joy of worship. The crowd roared. The music swelled. And David danced like he had nothing to prove and everything to celebrate. Michal watched from a window, and she despised him. The scripture does not soften this. It says, when Michal saw David leaping and dancing before the Lord, she despised him in her heart. Why? Was it embarrassment? Was it the pride of a king's daughter watching the dignity of the throne be thrown to the wind? Was it something deeper? Years of silence, years of abandonment, years of being handed from one man to another without a word, finally boiling over into contempt. We do not fully know. But when David came home, she confronted him. Her words were sharp and cold as iron. How glorious the king of Israel looked today, uncovering himself before the servant girls like any vulgar fellow. And David, the man who had once written psalms of tender devotion, answered her with his own heat. He told her that he danced before the Lord, who had chosen him over her father and all his house. He told her he would become even more undignified than this. He told her the servant girls would honor him even if she did not. It was not a conversation. It was the sound of a marriage ending. The scripture closes this chapter with a single line, quiet and devastating. Michal, the daughter of Saul, had no child to the day of her death. The story of Michal does not have the ending we hope for. There is no reconciliation scene, no tearful embrace, no moment where the broken pieces are gathered and made whole again. The Bible gives us a woman who loved fiercely, lost deeply, was used repeatedly, and ended her days in silence. But there is truth in this story that is worth everything. The first lesson is this: love without God at the center cannot hold. David and Michal's love was real. It was brave. It was sacrificial. But somewhere in the years of separation, in the politics of survival, in the pain they both carried, their love became something other than what it once was. And the love that had once sent a man through a window to safety became the contempt of two people who had stopped seeing each other at all. When we build relationships, whether in marriage, in family, in friendship, without placing God at the foundation, we are building on sand. The storms will come, the years will stretch, And without something deeper than feeling to hold us, what once was love can harden into bitterness. The second lesson is this: being used is not the same as being forgotten by God. Michal was used by her father, perhaps by David, by the politics of a broken kingdom. She was a pawn in battles she did not choose. And if you have ever felt like that, like a tool in someone else's story, like your pain was invisible, like no one stopped to ask what you wanted, then you understand Michal. But God sees what men overlook. The woman who was passed between kings was known by name in heaven. Her story was preserved, not as a footnote, but as a mirror. A mirror that asks us, who are you trusting with your heart? Who are you building your life around? The third lesson is this: a royal title does not protect you from pain. Michal was a princess, then a wife, then a widow, then a wife again. And she ended her life with no children, in a palace, surrounded by power, and alone. Status cannot substitute for the peace that comes from knowing and being known by God. Position cannot fill the places that only love, real, sacrificial, God-anchored love, can fill. And the fourth lesson points us forward. Because Michal's story is incomplete on its own, just as all of our stories are. David's line, in spite of its brokenness, its sin, its failure, was the line through which the Son of God would one day walk this earth. Jesus, the greater David, came not as a king protected by palace walls and political marriages. He came as a servant. He came humble. He was handed over, betrayed, used by those who claimed to love him. And unlike Michal's story, his did not end in silence. He rose. And through that resurrection, he made a way for every person who has ever felt like a pawn in someone else's story. Every person who has ever loved and been left, who has ever waited and never been retrieved, to be seen, to be gathered, to be brought home, not by a king who needed them for political strategy, but by a God who wanted them for love alone. If you are in a season where you feel like Michal, watching someone else's celebration from a window, carrying wounds that no one bothered to ask about, wondering if your story ends in silence, hear this: God has not forgotten your name. He knows the years you waited. He knows the things you sacrificed. He knows every window you helped someone through, even when it cost you everything. And He is not done writing your story. Do not let bitterness be the final word. Do not let the contempt that closes chapters also close your heart. Open it, even now, even again, to the God who chose David, not because David was perfect, but because David kept coming back. Come back. That is the invitation. Come back. Without God at the center, even the grandest love will eventually break. But with Him, even a broken heart can be made into something beautiful. Based on 1 Samuel 14:49, 18:20-28, 19:11-17, 25:44, 2 Samuel 3:13-16, 6:14-23.